Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Dawson, and I'd like us to talk a little bit about what may be parents' number one concern and what I feel may be their number one job. About 25 years ago, I finally figured out to leave the last appointment before lunch open so that there'd be time for folks to talk about their more complicated problems without us having someone else in the next room waiting for me to see them. We could spend a little more time on their more complicated problems. And so over the years, they would come in with school problems, discipline problems, my child's too short, whatever the problem was. At some point during the conversation, one of the parents would say, "I'm just worried about how it will affect their self-esteem." So it turned out they were not as worried about what the problem was that they were talking about, but they were worried about their child's self-esteem. And the ironic thing about all this is that self-esteem doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from the parents. So it turns out that perhaps the answer to parents' most important parenting question is something I learned before I was married, before I had children, and before I was a doctor. I was a single young man in college. And I went off to college, and when I got there, everybody was either cool or handsome or athletic, and those same things all seemed to be super important. And then I met a young man and his sister, and they weren't particularly the coolest kids on campus. They weren't the most handsome, and they weren't the most athletic, and yet they were loved by everyone and surrounded by folks who had all these gifts, and yet they were held in higher esteem than most. And it didn't make sense to me. But over the next few years, I figured it out. It turned out they came from an amazing home where the parents were able to teach them and show them that they loved and accepted them 100% for who they were. And with that armor, those children were able to go out into the world and spread such joy that everyone was attracted to them, and it made their lives wonderful. So your main job as a parent is to convince and show your children that you love and accept them 100% for who they are. Now, does that mean you can't discipline them or work on their rough edges? No, that's your job as a parent. But as you're doing it, they always need to feel that you love and accept them 100%. Now, we've all seen the opposite of this. We all know folks that are extremely successful in the world, and they've gotten awards, and they've made a bunch of money, and everything's been great. But where one of their parents didn't fully love and accept them for who they were, that's a hole that the outside world can't fill. And so those folks in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, no matter how many awards and successes they get, that hole is never able to be filled. So what I want you to do, in one of your main jobs, I want you to show your children that you love and accept them 100% for who they are. And armed with that, they can sail out into a cruel world that can't harm them. So think about it. I think it's true.